Thank you for joining us today. I'm Brittany Blake. I'm the Marketing Director and Finance Director at LGA Architecture. And with me today are our presenters, Jason Jajorian, who is the Principal at LGA, and Alexia Chen, who's a Project Architect at LGA. So our team has spent the better part of this month compiling this content for you and updating it what seems like constantly, because things are changing exponentially fast during these times. But anyone that knows our firm or has worked with us knows that we pay extra special attention to the experience of each visitor for the facilities that we design. And we think this will prove even more important as we navigate through our new normal. So a little background about how all this came about. We first started working from home weeks ago, and we wanted to remain a resource for the community, and felt the best that we could do that was, we had this limited capacity, and we decided to get the best minds in our community together and brainstorm and share ideas. So this brought about our series that we've been calling Fireside Chats. And hopefully you were able to attend our first one, which was at the beginning of this month. If not, it is recorded, and you can find that recording on our website. It's at the bottom here of the screen, the URL. So just lgaarchitecture.com/webinars, and you will be able to find our previous webinars and the Fireside Chat, as well as this webinar, which is being recorded. So once we get it cleaned up and up on the YouTube channel, we'll get that link sent out to you, as well as put it up on that site, so you can find it there. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. There was already a question, but yes, every attendee is muted. So if a question should arise, which we hope you do have some questions, because we will have time for that at the end. If you look at the bottom of your screen here, I'm sure most of you guys have had Zoom meetings ad nauseum at this point, but there's a Q&A box at the bottom here. You can type your questions in there at any time, and we can take those at the end. There is also some suggestions we have just on the best way to view the presentation. If you have at the top view options, if you click on that, there is a fit to window option. We just think that's the best way that we found to see it, just so it doesn't cut off any part of the presentation. So if you have those settings ready to go, it should work well for you. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass it over to Jason Jajorian.
Thank you, Brittany. Hope everyone can hear me just fine. Thumbs up? Yeah. So welcome to New World, New Experiences for our cultural institutions. Oops, sorry about that. As Brittany mentioned, we had a fireside chat a few weeks back, and we heard from our top institutional leaders about what their facilities have been doing during this time. We heard from Melissa with the Discovery Children's Museum and how they started working on our safety measure plans prior to the quarantine order being issued. And they're making their place safe for the public. And they've been posting their efforts on YouTube or on social media platforms to help build trust in the community. We heard from Danielle how the library district has developed a new electronic library card. And since the implementation of this card, they've seen a record number of online downloads. We heard from David how they've expanded their social media outreach and created essentially a museum from home virtual presence, and have added new educational classes online to provide this to students at schools. We heard from Jeremy how Meadow School is preparing for what could be an unpredictable future, and in the event of a second wave, for instance. And they're creating scenarios at the school where they can move quickly between in-classroom teaching or online learning systems pretty fluidly. So as we reflect back at the things we learned, we heard that our institutions are making facility and operational changes to make sure the public can feel confident when they come back. They're providing special training for their staff to handle new safety and procedures. They're bridging the gap by providing new online content so they can carry out their mission during the quarantine period. And finally, our institutions are planning on the unpredictable future by building what we heard was hybrid business models, models that they can quickly switch between an online platform or our traditional in-person platform. So when we heard these things, it leads us to desire to think of ways our museums, our libraries, our visitor centers and community centers can find new ways to become agile and improve their visitor experiences in their space. So let us begin thinking about a positive vision of our future. What if we can work together to create safe and enjoyable visitor experiences that puts people at ease and brings people back sooner than imaginable? What if we're able to return to our lives with renewed purpose and draw our community closer together? And what if in our new normal, we find innovative ways to live together and connect better with nature? None of us could have predicted the pandemic. However, we are in need now of a plan to adapt our facilities for the future. And that is why we are here today. At LGA, we believe the experience people have at our institutions are the key driver in producing happiness. Word of mouth is the most effective tool to increase visitation, renew memberships, raise value and volunteerism, and ensure public health and safety concerns in our new world. Providing a great visitor experience is the best marketing strategy you have. This session is designed to offer ideas for adopting our facilities for flexibility and offer suggestions on how best to improve experiences. In our new normal, we believe the institutions that provide the best experiences will be the institutions that bounce back the fastest. For today, we'll discuss 3 topics. What makes a good visitor experience and why it will matter even more in the future? We'll tell stories of past visitor experiences through examples and reimagine our future by weaving in stories of new possibilities. And finally, we will offer facility planning actions that our institutions may consider to do. I'm going to turn it over to Alexia, and she'll talk about why experience matters.
All right. Let's see if this clicks through. Not really, but okay. Well, we're going to talk about why experience matter and what is a good experience. If we look into our memories for bad experiences, we can probably think of something like this. Arriving at a place like this, we remember the feeling of being in the wrong place, an unsafe space, don't know where to go, and there are no signs for directions. All this results in a bad impression and a bad memory. Now try to remember one of the better experiences. What do they have in common? It could be a welcoming space like this that's bright and open. Maybe there's some views to greenery outside, or there might be signages to provide clarity of where to go. Today, we'll talk about some of these qualities that make up a good visitor experience. And they're not necessarily new concepts, but it is more important now than ever to enhance your space when people might be hesitant to go out in public places as we're still recovering from the pandemic. There are also many challenges in this new reality. Queuing like this is a thing of the past. There will be many safety procedures, checkpoints to just enter the facility. People may be required to wear masks, and there are distancing requirements. People have to be more cautious about touching surfaces and interacting with each other. So how do cultural institutions enhance the visitor experience in this new normal? How do they provide experience that relieve stress engage their brains, and provide that much missed social connection and safe ways to explore the cultural offerings. One of the best ways to relieve stress and engage our brains is using healthy building principles. You may have been in a dark, windowless conference room like this one. It's hard to pay attention, and you feel restless after a while, and you just want to get out. And you may have seen some attempts in improving these windowless rooms by adding artificial lighting panels like this that mimic the look of a sky. But a room with actual windows that let in sunlight and provide views, a room where you can be around natural materials like wood, or even have carpets like this that mimic the look of grass, it feels so much better than any of the previous examples. I know I can have an 8-hour meeting in this room, no problem. And the reason why this is important is because we humans spend a lot of time indoors. Around 90% of our days we spend inside. And the cultural institutions are mostly also indoor environments. So how can we shape the indoor spaces to be more enjoyable for people? Here are some of the key principles. As the conference room example showed earlier, we simply just naturally feel better in spaces with daylighting, good indoor air, and a connection to nature and views. So first we're gonna talk about the value of clean air, one of the hot topics right now due to the pandemic. This is a picture of a swamp cooler filter because I want to tell you a story. When I was an architecture student, I attended a seminar in a rural location in Nevada. It was late August and over 100 degrees, and there were more than 30 people crammed in a small room with only a swamp cooler and a couple of upright fans for air circulation. And despite how much I was interested in the topic that the architects were presenting on the panel, I just couldn't stay awake, no matter how hard I tried. I struggled with it for hours. It was a terrible feeling to not be able to listen to the thing that I wanted to know about, and it's just terrible experience overall. Now, thinking back on that experience, I realized it was the poor air circulation. That's the reason why I couldn't stay awake, because my brain needed oxygen. So from both experiences and looking at research studies, we now know that indoor air quality gives us a more engaged audience. From this chart, derived from a Harvard study, we can see that when we combine reduced indoor pollution, usually chemical off-gassing from materials such as carpet and paint, and provide higher ventilation rates, in this study, about double the conventional rate, the participants have higher cognitive responses in the areas of focus and ability to use information. All of these things, potential of making a visitor more engaged in your institutions. Go to the next slide. And to achieve the better quality air, there are some simple things we can do, such as increase the outside air by offering operable windows and adjust your ventilation system to bring in more fresh air. In the ongoing pandemic, you can even add better MERV filters to further reduce transmission risks. And the other thing is keeping the pollutants outside by having entry systems such as walk-off mat and vestibules to trap the pollutants and pathogens that might be on visitors' shoes from getting into your building. Now, an equally important element in keeping people engaged is daylighting. This graphic shows how sunlight changes color throughout the day, and it is tied to our circadian rhythm. If you haven't heard of this term, it is the internal biological clock that tells us when to be active and when to rest, relating to the sunlight color. The blue light keeps us more awake, while red light allows us to rest. This is why now you may have noticed on the iPhones, they offer a new night shift mode, allowing you to shift your screen color to be more red in the evening so it doesn't disrupt your sleep. When people are engaged with cultural institutions such as libraries and museums, it's usually during the active part of the day, which is why you tend to feel more uplifted and productive in a brightly daylight space like this, compared to a space with only artificial lighting that may not have the right color temperature. Galleries and reading rooms with daylighting allow patrons to spend more time in them. On the other hand, when you're in the dark and dimly space, your anxiety level naturally rises. When you can't see very well, you're also not sure if the place is very clean either. As part of rebuilding that public trust, providing bright daylit spaces help change that perception. Well, even when your exhibit spaces are not set up to have daylight, providing some public areas for breaks can help re-energize the visitor before they continue with exploration, especially when you have a lot of content to explore. In this example, not only does the window bring in light, it also provides a view to nature, which brings us to the next point, our love for nature and how it improves our mental well-being. There's a reason why there are always photos of nature in doctor's offices, like this one. The same reason why hotel rooms with natural views are more expensive than those with city views and more than those with a parking lot view. Because we love to look at nature, to just observe its beauty because it feels good. And it's relaxing when we let our minds free to explore the views. Since we all have been quarantined inside for the last 2 or 3 months, I'm sure you can relate to the feeling when you just need to go outside for a short walk, to look at the trees, the sky, or listen to the birds chirp for a while. It changes how you feel about being cooped up after all day. If you look around the room you're in right now, the walls, the ceiling, and the furniture, all the man-made elements and objects, they lack the same richness and complexity that the natural environment has, like you can see in this picture. And it's part of the reason why I like to zoom from the beach with this ocean background, because I'd much rather look at this relaxing view instead of my drywall or the bathroom door. The concept behind this is called the attention restoration theory. The changing colors and textures, the smell of plants, the sound of water, it all helps relax and clear our minds by providing a soft fascination. It allows our minds to wander a bit and helps us recover from the mental fatigue and renew our attention and focus. While it is stressful to be going out there in this public health crisis, if we can incorporate views and access to nature in built spaces, it will help reduce anxiety and improve the experience for visitors and staff alike. So to sum up, healthy buildings enhance the visitors' experience by allowing their brains to be more engaged and more relaxed. And engaged patrons tend to come back to your space more often. With the stress of reopening and the need to rebuild trust, visitors will choose to go back if they can feel relaxed and safe to explore your space. And it also helps engage your staff. Your staff can account for up to 90% of your operational cost. Now, with the tighter budgets we have to deal with in the new normal, it's even more important to improve their morale and well-being than before. This picture is one of the many medical clinics we designed. Out of over 40 prototype places with similar layout and identical materials, this is somehow the most loved one. And really the only main difference is this access to the lake view outside. This clinic has been a great recruitment tool for the client, as both incoming and existing staff wanted to work at this location. In the new world, beyond keeping the staff physically safe with cleaning and disinfecting protocols, it is also important to maintain their mental wellness and a healthy building can help you do just that. Now Jason will take over the next part.
Thank you, Alexia. So next, let's reimagine our future by using our adroit process. We adopted the adroit process from exhibit planners, and we made it our own over the course of the years. The adroit is a framework for designing unique visitor experiences. And each letter of the adroit that you see on the wheel here represents a step within a patron's overall visit. The A equals arrival. D is for decompression. R is for reception. O is for orientation. I is for interpretation. Sometimes we use it for interaction or information depending on the project type. And T is for transformation. We use this model because it allows us to think about every part of the user journey, and through that we're able to maximize the overall engagement. We believe that looking at the details makes for a better overall great experience that will drive your bottom line. Now, considering where we are in this pandemic, we feel there's probably a step that needs to be brought more to the forefront, and that is the pre-arrival stage. And this is your online engagement. So let's talk a little bit about there, and let's start there. The online experience you offer your visitors is a way for you to manage expectations and provide clarity to your patrons before they ever arrive. This is an opportunity for you to post the best times of visit. Maybe when the crowds are less during the day, the times your crowds are less, maybe it's the best time others can come. You can allow people to purchase tickets online, so there's less contact when they're on their visit. You can post things such as your cleaning schedules and make people feel at ease that you're taking care of business, or maybe want to arrive right after you're finished your cleaning cycle. You can post your new procedures and protocols so visitors know how to behave when they come to your facility. You can focus on what your visitors can do and what new upgraded services and experiences you will now offer. And Alexia talked a lot about indoor air quality and how important that is. And I'm sure all of us at one point or the other have been on our phones looking at our weather apps, and we've seen the quality of the air outdoors. But your online dashboard could be a way of posting your indoor air quality as a measurement, and show and prove to the public how clean your facility is and how healthy it can be considering everything else. Next, let's move to the arrival stage. Arrival, we begin on the exterior, and the focus is on creating a welcoming and safe place. Beauty is in the details. At the Springs Reserve parking area, you can see the solar shade panel structures and native trees help provide shade for people as they first arrive at the site. And we see this as being important because there might be the need for visitors to stay longer outdoors as queuing happens, or a staggering of schedules to help keep numbers low in your facilities. And it's also important to have subtle ways right from the beginning to show the authenticity of your building and what are you about. This is the Springs Reserve after all, and water is important. Here, the water lands, storm waters lands on the parking lot, and they flow easily into natural swales on site. And visitors can encounter where this water all ends up in a restored wetlands on the trails. In the future, providing better drop-off experiences that connect people to comfortable outdoor spaces and safe places is very important. We want to make visitors feel safe and comfortable. And provide visible and clear signage, such as here at Mountains Edge Park. This helps create the identity and clarity for visitors when they arrive. It's important to provide easy access for all. Parents can easily roll their strollers up over the zero curve, and there's things to do for children as soon as they arrive. You can see the concrete blocks here provide protection from vehicles when people come. And it's also a place for people to sit and socialize at a safe distance. Another idea is to introduce public art in these spaces to help activate them. And this could be part of what brings social connections back. And it's also a way to provide just great photo opportunities. In addition, art can play a major role in bringing awareness to the state of our world. It can explain issues such as climate change, or just bring awareness about why is it important to treat everyone better. And at this example of Mountain's Edge, the children from the elementary school down the street from the park created the art that you see on the tiles that are embedded in this wall. And we learned of this technique in the Lofton Library we designed decades ago. And during construction of that project, kids from the community were able to come and place their handprints on a plastered column. And that column still stands today. We recently attended a 30-year anniversary of Lofton Library, and it's amazing. We still hear stories of that experience, and those memories and the experiences will last in that community forever. At the city of Las Vegas, recently renovated their Baker Park and pool. Now this pool has been here for years. It's been here forever, but it's funny, the community didn't really know about it. So part of this renovation, they've added messaging and made it more a prominent feature on site. And the idea here is to make people feel comfortable on telling them what they can do, not focus on the restrictions that we're all dealing with now. We have enough restrictions in our life now. Positive messaging can build trust. And we found a couple of great examples of this I'd like to share. How about a twist on what the unexpected, of what you can do? It's all right to have fun. And sometimes you just have a great offering and it's okay to tell your patrons, just check it out, absorb it, take it all in. Next is a decompression step. This is a transitional step. And here you carry over the themes from the arrival and connect people to the reception space. The goal is to relieve stress and let your visitors leave their worries behind by providing accommodations. At the Railroad Museum Visitor Center in Boulder City, the elevated plaza becomes an outdoor transitional space before visitors enter the facility. And this space is highlighted by the Davenport locomotive, which has a particular history and helped with the identity of this place. The Davenport brought materials down to the workers during the construction of Hoover Dam. And so it has a story to tell. The point here is bring your interior offerings to the exterior whenever possible. And this way you can capture more space for people, especially when social distancing is necessary. Here's an example of a clear path that relieves stress in a subtle way. It begins with the information panel, and you can see a winding path leads visitors on. I can see the edges of the concrete path are broken. Maybe that's to reflect the geology of the place. I can see a hypothetical stream leading visitors to the destination. Maybe that's made of recycled glass content embedded in the concrete. I can imagine jackrabbit, fox, bighorn sheep tracks, animal impressions in the concrete to help add to that experience. These visual cues help provide clarity of what visitors are to expect once they visit the facility and explore beyond. So we're now on the reception step of the adroit process. And this is a formal introduction of the experience. As you can see here, the ticket area is positioned in a way to provide safe distances between visitors and staff. At the same time, staff have a position for clear visibility on who enters and who else is in the facility and to the rest of the facility. This way they can provide direction and clear direction. The interior planners here can help create one-way paths when that's necessary for operational use of the facility. And I can imagine interactive dashboards or apps, mobile apps that can show real-time operational changes, or be that dashboard we talked about earlier, that indoor air quality monitoring. In our office recently, we took a poll, and the poll was, what are the qualities of a reception space that make the biggest difference, and what are the most important qualities? And natural light and well-lit spaces came to the top. And at Opportunity Village, this is especially important for their patrons and their clients. They have a higher eye light to light sensitivity than most people. And I think we've all experienced things like this, like if we're out during the day and we enter a restaurant that's darkly lit, and how uncomfortable that feels, that transition, allow your eyes to adjust. It's important to create smooth and strong connections from outdoor into interior spaces. In the future, we see the need for other considerations for visitors as they enter your facility. We can imagine vestibules being larger if possible, and as a way to screen visitors as they come in or hand out personal protection equipment. It's also a way for visitors to use we can add large walk-off mats. Visitors can clean off contaminants off their shoes to help keep those out of your facility. And here at the Downtown Medical Health Center, you can see an example of a safe room, a space where staff can bring visitors into to ease emotional stress. Now we're on to orientation. Orientation is providing clear and reliable direction. This is the key step in reducing visitor anxiety and decrease confusion. Orientation is about providing comfort and guidance to visitors through an organized framework. This is a picture of the Discovery Children's Museum, and each level of the museum is themed. The first level is for geology. The second level is for flora and fauna. The third level, which is the one you're looking at now, is about the atmosphere. And these themes are played out in the colors, materials used, the ceiling clouds above. And each level has a central orientation plaza that you see here, an example on the left, where programmable displays can let people feel at ease by giving directions on where they can go. This is also another opportunity for a facility to offer directions, operational changes, or updates. At Opportunity Village, there's a central tree in the main circulation spines, and this is a central landmark within the space. People can find where they are in relationship to this tree. It's a literal example of connecting people with nature. This tree could be decorated for the seasons. It is also could be a place for people to come together and gather socially in the future and help build that trust and be a place to come to. And at the same time, it could be a marker used by staff to help separate people and flows of traffic. Now on the interpretation step. Interpretation experiences can take many forms. This is the step where learning happens and connections are made. You may have been at the Springs Reserve Desert Living Center and seen the passive solar and ventilation building strategy details around the buildings. These visual cues can become conversation starters and bring people together in unexpected ways. Alexia told me of this as we were building this webinar and how this actually happened to her. She overheard a couple talking about one of these details, and she was able to come in and make that connection for them and made it a better experience for them. Right outside the visitor center at Spring Mountain Visitor Gateway is the Seven Stone Plaza. This plaza celebrates the Southern Paiute tribes known collectively as the Nuuvi people. This place allows tribal members to come together to tell stories and be a place together in a place of meaning to them. This is a social example of an outdoor classroom setting. So the idea here is capture as much outdoor space as possible to expand your services and also to connect to nature whenever possible. We talked a little bit about the fireside chats. We heard about these hybrid models, these links to online services and our traditional in-person services. We know the virtual world will not replace hands-on anytime soon. However, there's probably some gray area here. And this is where our institutions will need to live probably in the short term until we come out of this pandemic completely. We can imagine more motion sensor and voice command activated devices and displays. We can imagine visitors bringing their own personal stylus, so they no longer have to use their finger, they can use a stylus to touch commonly placed items. But a way I would like to think about this is about providing greater access. We can imagine, Alexia and I thought of this idea of, what if a person is sitting at home and they can virtually walk through their library, browse the book stacks, right with their VR goggles on. And this person really could be anywhere in the world. And that type of access we can't lose as we move forward in our new normal. The transformation is the final step. Transformation doesn't always relate to a particular space, but it's the ultimate delivery of experience and delivery of an institution's purpose. Each transformation is unique to its own place and time. At the Springs Mountain Visitor Gateway, what was once a failed golf course and skating ring is now a place for visitors to self-reflect, to connect with nature, and to connect with the Nuuvi history of the Nuuvi people. What was once a parking lot at Alexander Dawson School is now an organic garden that children participate in growing. The food taken from these gardens are highlighted by the chef on the cafeteria menu. And in some cases, this experience opens a door to a lifetime of healthy living for some of these children. Institutions that best connect with their visitors through positive experiences will embed long-lasting memories that secure the institution's place in the future. We introduced the concepts and qualities of what makes healthy buildings in visitors and how that contributes to visitor experiences. And we gave examples using our Droid process. So now we're left with a question. What transformations does your facility make happen? And how can you make those transformations even better? I'm going to turn it over to Alexia, who will now close, and we'll walk you through some planning actions you may want to consider.
Thanks, Jason. So we'll just walk through some of the reimagined experiences the cultural institution can offer, but how does it apply to your facilities? The Droid tool can be used to review your current patron experience, one step at a time, to find the strengths that can be enhanced, the weaknesses that can be improved. We've gone through this process with some of our past projects just for our own learning purposes. We went back to the Discovery Children's Museums, for example, and learned that for one thing, there's never enough signage. So let's look at some potential steps that you can take. It's important to customize your space planning to suit your scenario plans as the situation continues to evolve. And we heard from a lot of institutions that they are planning different approaches as it changes. You will want to adapt the facility to follow your operational needs. But with tight budgets, what are some of the cost-effective options that can be done? What if you have a small lobby and not enough space for people to safely be distanced as they enter? How about dressing up an outdoor waiting area with plants and shade, using planters to separate traffic flows? You can also easily incorporate natural sounds inside the lobby to provide positive distractions for patrons as they complete the otherwise stressful check-in process. What if you have a windowless reading area? How can you improve it? Simply painting the walls and ceilings a lighter color, you can make the space much brighter. You can also replace LED lamps with those that mimics the daylight color progression and include natural materials and patterns. Your existing buildings may need some upgrading. How can existing assets be modified for new needs? Adjust your existing outdoor space for more programs. They can be used for exhibits or group events such as workshops and classes, allowing people to connect more safely. You may need more infrastructure to be put in to work with the virtual tools we're adding now, such as motion or voice-activated interactions. And if you're in the middle of planning new buildings or major renovations, you may need to envision some new approaches to space design that will maximize flexibility and safety in the new normal. You may opt for reconfigurable walls and furnishings instead of permanent built-in fixtures. You will need surfaces and spaces that are easy to clean. And you may even reconsider the ratio of indoor and outdoor spaces. We know it is hard to exactly predict the future and what it will be, but these are some of the methods for you to take to make new plans. In a recent article, author Arundhati Roy gave us this wonderful insight for all of us dealing with the shift in our way of life. She said, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew, and this one is no different. We should look at it as a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. Be ready to walk through it lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world, and ready to fight for it. We hope that this presentation has inspired you to think differently about your buildings. If you'd like to learn more about how to apply these concepts and processes, please reach out to us. We're here to help. We can help you transition from where you are now to making it an engaging environment for the future. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll now take some questions.
Thank you.
So just as a reminder, the Q&A box is right there at the bottom. I did get a couple questions. I'll wait to see if anything comes through the Q&A box, but I did get a couple here sent directly to me. So maybe you guys can answer these in the meantime. Sure. Looks like there's a couple along the same lines, but basically, you know, all this stuff is great. However, we are on a super tight budget at my facility. What are some low-cost, low-hanging fruit ideas that we can possibly implement to better our visitor experience?
Well, I think Alexia gave a couple of good examples. Painting your facility to help with better light distribution in your space is a relatively inexpensive measure. And whenever possible, messaging and signage is really one of the true keys to making people feel comfortable where they are and understanding what to do. I also like to add, if budgets do allow, I suggest those whenever you provide new messaging or signage, try to make those signage flexible, because things change over the course of time, and for the long term, that might be a better investment for you.
And I think in terms of having access to outside views, you may already have windows, but maybe they're not organized in a way that it's easily viewable, or it's not, you know, part of the reading spaces or whatnot. So maybe there's ways to rearrange how furniture and spaces are organized in your space to allow those areas to be more prominent and highlighted for the users.
Great.
Good one. Hi, Jill. I was typing you an answer here, but I can go ahead and reiterate this in case you guys missed it at the beginning of the presentation. But this is being recorded, and it will be distributed to all the attendees. So if you had registered through the system, we will go ahead and send you the link, but you can also find it at the bottom of the screen here at this URL. lgaarchitecture.com/webinars. It will be made available there probably, I would say, next week once we get it and clean it up a little bit. So one more question here. Let's see. It says, we don't have a standard to follow and the governor's recommendations are not specific enough. What do you suggest we do first?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of us are experiencing that right now. I would say lean on your partners. I think what we learned from our fireside chat is a lot of places and institutions are experiencing the same thing, and it's good to know that unlike our last recession, this one feels a little different. People are pulling together, people are sharing resources, and I think just talk to your neighbors and talk to institutions, and I think you'll be surprised of how easy, how well people respond and provide information on what they're doing.
Yeah, I know that the Mob Museum has published their operational, like the new rules, how the public should expect when they come in, and it's on Facebook. That's where I saw it. Yeah. And then I think from our last chat with David from the Nevada Art Museum, he's willing to share their plan with us, with anyone who has to reach out to.
Right.
Just had one regarding balancing outside air and indoor spaces that have environmentally sensitive art, etc. How would you address this?
Yeah. So
yeah. Go ahead, Alexia.
I think you probably have to, with that regard, we definitely have to bring in a mechanical engineer and understand what the requirements your artifacts may have to have. And then from there, you know, maybe some of the spaces you have to limit how much fresh air you can bring in because of the humidity or temperature reasons. But there are different devices, you know, if budget allows, you know, energy recovery ventilators can lower the temperature, you know, when it's hot outside before the fresh air is brought in, or increase the humidity before it's brought into the space. And if none of those could be done, then some of the space you may just have to up your filtration by going to a MERV 17 filter. Okay. I know there's been a lot of talk about adding UV lighting to sterilize your ductwork, but I have heard from other mechanical engineering saying that it's not the best way, because as air blows through the duct, there's not enough time for UV to do its job, to disinfect whatever virus might be in the air. So a different way of doing that using UV would be to install lighting in the space itself, not in the duct, but in the room. And then when your facility is closed after hours, you turn on the UV light and have it disinfect the surfaces while people are not there.
Jason, did you have something to add, or she?
No, I think Alexia hit it. I was going to add, it's more than just opening up a window. The filtration has to happen as part of that, especially in those more sensitive spaces.
Okay, another question here. Can the speakers talk about how the adroit process affects the design process and early decision making?
Oh, that's a good one. I think so. I'd like to maybe explain how we use it a little bit. And as architects, when we're most creative, we try to put ourselves in our client's shoes. And so the adroit process, when we work the adroit process, we try to put our minds and understand the audience, the visitors who are going to be experiencing the facility. And through there, we can become more creative. We can tell stories about what happens. So that's kind of the overall how it works for us, is through personas, understanding who's visiting your facility, and storytelling. And so can you read the second part of the question, Brittany, again?
How it affects the design process and early decision making.
Okay, yeah. We actually tell the story of the visitor right from the beginning. So in our initial plans, the floor plan doesn't happen until we actually walk through a visitor experience, either through, and and different versions of that visitor experience. So it's an early planning tool, and then we refer back to it as we proceed in more detailed design. But the plan, the visitor plan, comes right along with the initial floor plan.
Do you have anything to add, Alexia?
I think, I mean, we do start really early on the concept phase, and then I think one part that maybe missed in other practice is the sites. I think at LGA, we're pretty known for designing the site experience before you even enter the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went back to the School of Architecture and, you know, work with the students, I know a lot of them, they never even draw the site plan. They just have the inside of the building.
Yeah.
And I'm at a loss because I'm trying to imagine it as if I was a visitor approaching their building. I'm like, where did I park? How did I go there? So I think all of those steps is what we focus on, especially in the early phase when we start with the site plan, you know, from how people arrive at your site and then how they approach your building and then how they enter, like Jason described in the presentation, each of the steps, so that we can really understand that full journey and not overlook any one part.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
And sometimes the adroit is not a linear process. We found in some projects it plays itself out more linear, and maybe, but I think the better way to look at it, it's more kind of integrated. These are points along the way. You want to keep, there's lessons learned from each step and applies to different areas in your facility. Sometimes you may just have an interior remodel and you don't have an opportunity to capture outdoor space and do the full decompression, but maybe upon entering your facility, you can pull some of those qualities into that experience too.
Very good. It's a question here. Using outdoor space, near and dear to my heart. But do you see using outdoor space for exhibit galleries as a result of wanting to expand the facilities and accommodate social distancing?
Yeah, I think we gave a few examples of that today. And I think that's the point is, I think that's a way to provide flexibility in your operations from the new normal. I think is to provide more separation for people. Obviously, the big quarantine rules have all been about limiting the number of people in a space. And so space is a premium, and I think we need to utilize every inch of it, and that includes the outdoors. And Alexia did a great job talking about why that's even more important, just from a healthy building, healthy living standpoint, and being connected to nature.
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously for the short term, that would be very much needed. But perhaps it's a new way of looking at how we design the exhibit spaces. If the items are okay to be outdoor, you know, obviously some of the artifacts and artwork will have to be inside to be temperature control. But, you know, as we know, a lot of art museums have sculptural gardens, and there's a lot of maybe interactive kind of object that can survive outside. So I think it's just a challenge for the operators and architects, designers alike to rethink how we design outdoor museum spaces, especially in our climate. There's an extra challenge of heat and shading. But I think incorporating natural, like plants and landscape to provide shade and that extra connection to nature would be a great way to start.
Very good. This one's regarding balancing incessant cleaning and your thoughts on healthy buildings, and how does that juxtaposition work?
You said incessant?
Yeah. Chemicals, harsh chemicals, and incessant cleaning.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was on a different webinar with the Urban Land Institute, and they've invited some representative from the CDC. I think one takeaway I got from that was really good was that you want to focus your cleaning on where it's effective. So you're not just going nuts and cleaning every single surface in your space the same way, but you should be cleaning, you know the areas that's most touched, door handles or surfaces that you have to operate things, and benches, you know, anything like that, that you know people are constantly touching, you definitely want to be cleaning those a lot and making sure you're using the right right cleaning solutions. But you know, the walls of the space and you know other things that are less come into contact less with people, you don't have to clean as much. And then I think there has been over the last two decades, there's a lot of things about green cleaning, alternative materials for cleaning. I think right now for this pandemic, we have to kind of follow the guidelines that the health authorities gave out. So besides, I know that there's a lot of chemicals that are not maybe the greatest for people, but I think some of the more basic options like soap and water, if that's still applicable for the surface area cleaning, is actually one of the better ways. It actually works better if you know, you wash it with soap. But if not, then you know the over 70% alcohol solutions is a pretty safe way and clean and not totally harsh chemical in terms of the cleaning solution. And then just bleach solutions could also be another basic way to go without getting crazy on the chemicals.
Okay,